Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Fantastic. Here, just get this a little closer right there.
Okay.
There you go. Just got us a little martial arts training session in. Now we're podcasting it up. Appreciate you coming on to talk. Really, the only weird part is at the beginning when I have to sort of tell everybody who you are that's not reading the title of the video.
Okay.
Or the audio feed. But it's Dr. Dana Thomason, and a Renaissance man of sorts. We just did martial arts together. I got a lot of things to ask you about throughout the day because previously an ordained minister, is this correct? Professor of philosophy and world religions.
At one point, yes.
At one point, still got one foot in the game.
Right.
Just what's how did you get started into education? Like, that's where you and I met. We were working at a college together. What got you interested in some of the same stuff I'm into?
I've probably been interested in it ever since I was in college. Actually went to college with the intention of going to law school.
Interesting.
Got a little sidetracked there. Got real interested in religion and philosophy. So I did a degree in theology, did my PhD in religious and theological studies, and then came back and did my master's in counseling, psychology and counseling.
And so you run your practice full time now, right? So you just recently retired from teaching. How many years were you in the?
30 years.
Wow.
A little over. Yeah.
Wow. And I know we've kind of gone, you and I, just in several conversations, but you've moved all over a little bit, or you lived in a few different cities and taught at a few different places in and out of state.
Really just, I went to school out of state, but pretty much lived in state otherwise. And I was really, I went to Hendrix College as a assistant chaplain and counselor. And while I was there, I got more and more interested in the counseling aspect of things, and went ahead and did actually completed my counseling degree while I was there on staff at Hendrix, and taught some courses there.
Do they offer masters?
No,
they have a master's program, graduate?
No, it's strictly undergraduate school.
Where did you get your graduate degree from?
The first one from SMU in Dallas, Texas, Southern Methodist University. That was a Master of Theology. I went from there to Denver, Colorado, and did my PhD there, University of Denver, and then came back to Arkansas, and after a couple of years went to UCA and completed the Master's in Counseling and Psychology there.
UCA is cranking out a lot of good stuff.
It's a good school.
It's I just recently I'm teaching Arkansas history this semester. I'm real excited about it, mostly because who I got to study with. That's the book over there, a huge book right there. I got a more condensed version. That's a book I use in the upper level course. But I got to study with one of the authors of the textbook when I went to school, and he's been him and a guy I was in graduate school with been kind of helping me out. But that's UCA had. I was looking at Arkansas history resources, and they had a. You know how TED Talks has kind of blossomed out, and they do a ton of different talks now. And UCA has been the host of some different TED Talks.
Wow, I didn't know that.
One was the Quapaw culture, and how they were going into how Arkansas is a Quapaw word. And for people listening who don't know, Quapaw is one of the what we call the 5 civilized tribes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right, who were the uncivilized tribes? But it was a fascinating little video. I was happy. I've been combing for resources for Arkansas history for the last this is pretty much all summer, and I was super happy to find such a solid video resource it was on YouTube, but it was you look at. I found some great videos yesterday, been chopped up from a AETN page, but I couldn't find their AETN video. It was like somebody had gotten the video and chopped it up. It's like a family member, and they had some stuff on their YouTube page, and I was like, I can't use this.
Yeah.
So it was a bummer. So sometimes you run into that, but I've got it set up to where each week we're going to be having some cool resources.
That's great.
Have you met Mr. Dean? He's one of my judo mentors, older gentleman.
So.
He's the guy who carved that Wing Chun dummy for me.
Okay.
But he has made me an Atlatl for that class. So, do you know? Are you familiar with that?
No.
I'll tell you what. I'll just throw this up on the computer real quick for you.
Okay.
It's like an ancient spear launching device. So, I'm going to show this to my classes, like one of the first days. It's pretty cool. That's my dog out there at the door. He wants to come and say hey. He's 107 pounds or something though, so
well,
he's
if he wants to say hi later, we'll do that.
He's a good boy.
Yeah.
Here we go. This video is called "What is an Atlatl?" on YouTube. If anybody wants to look it up. These are big in Australia too.
Really?
Yeah, it's prehistoric, pre-contact tribal cultures. It's pretty cool. He's got the antler on the. There you go. Pretty interesting, huh?
Cool.
It's just like a spear launcher.
Yeah.
It's like a bow and arrow version for a longer projectile than. But this one of those, I'm a resource I'm showing. These people actually make and sell Atlatls, but I had one commissioned to show my class.
Cool.
In the second week, we're gonna go over that, but interesting.
Yeah, never even heard of one.
Yeah,
Never heard of it.
I heard of it when I was going through school, and then it's come back up just preparing for this class. I was like, oh yeah, all right. So interesting. But man, prehistoric weapons are super fascinating to me. Which we were just trying some weapons at the gym.
Right.
So, I guess it makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, so let's get some of your take on this.
Okay.
And I think you and I might have even mentioned this to you before. Voltaire has this quote out there. I believe it's Voltaire. There he says, "A little bit of philosophy will make you an atheist, but a lot of philosophy will make you believe in God." Have you heard that before?
I haven't heard that one.
So that's one I tell my Western Civ 2 courses when I'm going over that. And but what would you? I mean, how do you? My philosophy professor I took in college, he would never divulge too deeply into his beliefs. But I've always wondered how a professional because there's only, I think, 12,000 philosophers in North America and Canada or something like that. Philosophy professor, something like that. Because he used to always cite the remarkably low numbers, like in case you're looking for something to get into.
Yeah.
Right. But how somebody that is very educated, as I've learned more as I've gotten out of school and reviewed and revisited and hit new levels of understanding on things. But how do you sort of marry the two?
Okay.
If that's
with philosophy, religion, and psychology. Wow.
Yes. Or the three. Yeah. There you go. For you, it hits a whole other plane.
I don't know. Common denominator may be consciousness itself.
Interesting. Yeah. Yes. What would you clarify that?
Sure. For me, can have many different names for ultimate reality. Some people call it Brahman. Some people call it the Tao. Some people call it God. For me, we're talking about consciousness itself. I don't know that I was ever very standard or orthodox in any of my beliefs, ever. I guess the first person I ever read that kind of got me understanding things a little more was Paul Tillich. Paul Tillich was a professor at the University of Chicago for a number of years, wrote a number of books over the years. He talked about God as being itself, big B. I would say that's the first time anything really made sense to me as far as religion, God, that sort of thing. Then started reading a little bit about process philosophy and theology with probably the most important person for me in that regard was John Cobb, who was professor out at Claremont, California for a number of years. University of Denver, a number of people there were schooled in process thought, and again, some other things finally were beginning to click with me. My own research in consciousness, and I would say religion, philosophy, the biggest influence on me has been Ken Wilber, of all people. Are you familiar with Ken Wilber's stuff? Ken Wilber was, well, he's still around. He was I think he even calls himself this, kind of a military brat. He moved around quite a bit with his family because his dad was in the military, or at least worked for the military. And he ended up in Duke University as a freshman with the intention of going to med school. And as he tells the story, he started reading some Eastern philosophy. I think read Tao Te Ching, and spent the rest of his time simply reading Eastern and Western philosophy and religion. Quit going to class. Really wasn't any big deal for him. He made a 4 anyway, and I think biochemistry or something along those lines.
Interesting.
Yeah, he's a pretty unusual individual. IQ over 160. Lettered in several sports, so not your typical nerd when it came to academics. Went to University of Nebraska to study and get his PhD. He dropped out there with a master's degree and began to write and lift weights and meditate. Did those three things. He, I hope I'm getting all this correct. At least this is what I've read. He worked as a dishwasher all those years while he was trying to get his first book published. Took him a little while, but then after that, now he has his collected works, which is kind of unusual for somebody that's still alive. But his first book's entitled Spectrum of Consciousness. And I think that was probably, that read probably really resonated with me. And so...
what was his thesis in that book? That's an interesting title.
Yeah, that consciousness is on a spectrum that kind of like the electromagnetic spectrum. Our consciousness is at different levels, and in some places he talks about 6 or 8 levels, 9 levels, but basically 3 big major breaks, which is in keeping with a lot of other philosophy and psychology, religion. So he's kind of right in tune with all that.
We were joking this morning at the gym about, and not really joking because I don't have. I always kind of pretext this by telling people that one of my very best friends is a Scientologist, but they have that bridge to the, I don't know what it is, but it is that you reach OT level 9.
Okay.
Then you're an operational thetan, a functional soul.
Yeah.
But the bridge to freedom, or so, I forget what it's all called, but there's kind of, it just reminds me, we're just talking about, we're like, OT level 9, man. That's what we're after. But that's interesting. I've started thinking about things more spectrum oriented than anything lately. I mean, it sort of seems that everything falls on a spectrum.
That's true for me, even with psychology, disorders, and so forth. I think all psychological disorders are on a spectrum. The Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, we call it the DSM, has mostly taken a categorical approach where you meet a certain number of criteria, then you can be diagnosed with major depression or generalized anxiety. But a lot of people are now thinking in terms of a spectrum, kind of idea is if and I'm making up the number here, but if, let's say, you need to meet 10 criteria to be diagnosed with major depressive disorder, and you only meet 8, does that mean you're not majorly depressed?
Just minorly depressed.
Yeah. So the move toward understanding things in a continuum, and that's also kind of fits well with my overall view of things.
Well, okay, so let's split off on another path here for a second, if we can. But interesting that you mentioned mental disorders. There's a lot of all these shootings as of late, and not to get on a super negative topic here, but a lot of people are saying that's mental disorders. A lot of people are saying it's video games. A lot of people are saying it's screens. A lot of people are saying it's politics and political division in our country. You as would you call yourself a clinical psychologist? Just a counselor?
Well, I'm licensed as a licensed professional counselor.
So just with your experience and your life and education and is in mental health care,
right?
However that's you want to quantify that. How do you quantify what's going on? What in your opinion is the cause of people doing these things in Walmarts and Kroger's and?
Well, I'm not sure that there's a single cause. I think it's multifaceted. Without getting too much into politics or anything, but I think there is a huge division in this country, and I think it's pretty sad. I don't think there's any one cause, but
everybody would like to maybe simplify it down to that. So. I totally agree.
Yeah.
But the mental health thing is something that keeps standing out, and that is the only argument that I've heard that I think has the most legs, is that, and in a time and place where in our known history of the world, we have more of a population and are more globalized than any time than ever that we know about.
Yeah.
And us being more globalized and more networked, we're having more reporting, more news outlets, digital media,
right.
And it's how that is all interfacing with us. I wonder if it's just because we have larger samplings of population, larger population centers, larger cities, and cities themselves, our tiny little nook of 65,000 people in the county or 30,000 people in the city, and we still have some crime here, shootings, and so a teenage girl shot her dad the other day, and stuff like that's going on. That's just here in our neighborhood, and we hear minor reporting on it, but nothing like what's going on with like reporting in the national news and stuff. But it's like, I wonder if it's just like there's more population, so therefore, because people will be mentally ill,
right,
or a certain number of people are born sociopathic, or just different studies and breakdowns I've seen on that. that's the only thing I could lead to think that's like, yes, people are being raised maybe with hysterical ideologies like white supremacy or
exactly
hate in general. So
I think one thing we definitely need to do is more money needs to be given for mental health. It should be, working in the field, obviously, I'm rather biased, but we definitely need to put more money toward helping those who are mentally ill. It shouldn't be so difficult to get help. And, of course, I think it's a serious problem. I think politics plays a huge role in the shootings. I think that, like you say, maybe just the population in general, and the accessibility of firearms with that kind of capacity. I have a license to carry.
Likewise.
So I'm not, totally anti-gun or anything like that.
I'm not either, but I am definitely pro-reform on some things.
Absolutely. No one needs a magazine that holds 100 rounds or, they just don't. I think that plays a role. Like I say, I think mental health plays a role. I think politics plays a role. Again, there's not just one. I don't think you can point at one thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's just my opinion on it. But I think we try to simplify things that are complex, and it's very easy to look at one thing and say that's the total reason for it when it's much more complex.
It's a rabbit hole.
Yeah.
On healthcare, do you feel like there's I've been following a lot of things Bernie Sanders is saying,
right,
in relation to democratic socialism. He was recently on Joe Rogan's podcast, did an hour and 7 minutes or something, and really explained a lot of his policies. Anybody who's wondering, like, he goes into how he plans to sort of pay for things,
right?
And I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm more into that than Amazon not paying taxes. But he's just like, why is Amazon not paying taxes? Joe Rogan asked him that, and he goes, and there's these off-island or offshore accounts and stuff like this. And he goes into, he's like, why is that? And he goes, because those are the people making laws.
Yeah.
But have you seen a candidate that's an answer? What are some things that we could, do you think Bernie Sanders is commenting on mental health? Because I've only heard him commenting on just like, and as somebody who is now at least partially retired.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
1 foot in the home.
That's right.
Right. But still also working and still had some a trip to the hospital recently and stuff like that. And I read this morning where some elderly couple, someplace out of state, did a murder-suicide because they couldn't.
Yes.
And I'm just like, man, that's one of the most heartbreaking things I've read this whole time. Like, that turned me more to, we got to fix that than anything.
We've got to fix something, in my opinion. We're the only industrialized nation in the world that does not provide health care for its people. The only one. You hear all these arguments, well, it's not so good in all these other places. I don't agree with that. I've talked to people that have used the resources in other places, and it's certainly better than not having any resources.
The cost on the IV bags and insulin and stuff that's like you got to have it is insane.
It's like my insurance, even though I'm now on Medicare, I have to pay a little more because I earn a little more. My supplemental and my drug, and then my wife is not 62 yet, so our insurance is going to be over $1,000 a month.
That's where my parents are at, man.
Over $1,000 a month.
I never even, one of the biggest blessings of the job at the college is that I kind of told everybody this on the front end, but what I have held out of my check every month for health, dental, life, vision, like the whole, and retirement, the whole spectrum, and the matching retirement, all that, is less than I was paying for just health before I started working. And I mean, here's, why is it that way? Here's my interpretation, is because the college went to these people like, hey, I got all these employees, you want to give us a break? Hey, we got all these campuses, you want to give us a break? And then the insurance company gives the college an insane break, but the insurance company's still killing it because the number of people on the... Right. And like, yeah, their liability goes up more. I get it because the number of folks on their insurance, but it's crazy that because I don't have the university bartering for me previously, I got to pay almost $300 more. And man, when I was trying to pay back student loans, and my wife and I are really successful with what we do at the gym. Like like Darren from work was asking me the other day, he's always joking around with me about like fighting and stuff. He's like, you want to go, man? I'm like, dude, we can start any position you want. But he's like, does your wife have to have it? I was like, no, dude, she doesn't. Yeah. Like, I was like, I don't really either. I just like having a lot of extra money. But when I was paying the student loans and everything was coming from just that, and all the insurance, and it's like, well, maybe we don't need dental, you know. And now it's just like, oh, but we can have dental for less. Okay, let's do that. And I think that it's be like, what I like is like, okay, whether I'm just got out of college, graduate school, in that first, transitionary period of getting into a career, paying back student loans, acquiring interest on student loans, trying to buy a house, it's like, are those the struggles I need to be dealing with? Yeah. And that's a lot of issues going on. It's like, I'm very fortunate in my plight. I know a lot of people with a PhD that can't get a job right now.
Yeah, yeah. And working in the area that I work in, I know people that, just basically aren't making it. They, a lot of people exist paycheck to paycheck. A lot of people make it on so little money.
Have you heard of people getting their student, so you take somebody that maybe went back to school when they were 40, and now they're drawing their Social Security and their wages are getting garnished to pay back their student loans. Yeah. Like, that blows my mind too. Yeah.
It's, there, again, I just think there's no excuse in our society for us not to take care of our people. That is a moral catastrophe.
Do you see a connection between poverty and mental health?
Yes. I mean, there's definitely some research that shows that people with mental illnesses, their income goes down. And we're talking about seriously mentally ill. They just don't have the ability to work, and so they're on some kind of support, and it's barely enough to survive on. And again, I think, if we're going to call ourselves a civilized society, seems like we have a responsibility to care for those who can't care for themselves. That just seems like a moral obligation to me. And it seems like there should be a moral obligation of the government to take care of its people. Again, if all the other industrialized nations in the world can do it, why can't we?
Well, that, yes. And I feel this way about it. It's like, without getting too deeply into the list of things we choose to spend money on at the state, local, and federal level of the bureaucracy, we can't spend money on that. We can't spend money on the stuff that we're talking about. Right. It's like, I've always been, I'm not pro the military, industrial, congressional complex that's going on. Yep. It's like, but I am pro us having a strong ass national defense.
Sure, absolutely.
And infrastructure and education.
Yeah.
And then within all of that, healthcare.
Yeah.
And I think that those are some of the
Yeah, the big three for me would be pretty much the same. Education, the infrastructure, which is falling apart, and healthcare. Those are three big things that, but I guess greed gets in the way more than anything else. And the discrepancy between the haves and have-nots, so to speak, grows larger all the time. It's just not... I guess we've lost our moral direction in some ways.
Why do you think that is? Do you think that's a lot of people would say that's, we've taken God out of society too much. Like I hear that argument in the South particularly a lot.
Yeah. I don't think it has anything to do with God. There can be morality among atheists, and for me, my concept, my ideas about God are so far from that right-wing understanding of things that, by many standards, I wouldn't even be called religious. And that's fine. You label me whatever you want to label me. Crazy man, that's okay. I'm kind of remember the old song, he's a walking contradiction.
Yeah.
Partly truth and partly fiction.
Yeah.
It probably fits me pretty well.
Yeah, just a heathen.
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, that's what are your thoughts on what's going on with just speaking on issues of morality and basic decency and empathy towards human rights?
Yeah.
With what's going on, I have a friend of mine, I'm hoping that he comes on the podcast. His name's Billy Reeder. He's a journalist. He's been on sabbatical. He's a sailboat. He's been down around Corpus Christi. He keeps going to the border, and he's reporting on that. He's a blog up, and he's a professor at Tech. And I've been asking him questions. I shoot him a message every now and then. I'm like, man, I read that there's 100,000 people last month, and this is a couple months ago, that showed up at the border in 1 month. Is that true? Yes. And it's these asylum laws, and he kind of goes into it. And I've just been going to him for information to try and understand. He's literally front lines. And he's like, well, basically what's going on is these people, it's the asylum laws, but he's like, there are not enough people there. If they even work 24 hours a day, they couldn't hear all of the cases. It would still take months and months and months if you worked 24 judges around the clock, right, 24 hours a day. And then it's like, how much due process are you providing? It's still going to be hurried and rushed proceedings. Okay. And last time there was a hurried and rushed proceeding, Jesus got crucified. All right. Joking, but true. On with our asylum laws and with immigration, and I see it. I've been explaining it to people this way. I'm like, yes, in the 60s and 70s, and even after that, we were in South America installing our little flavor of democracy down there, and now those threads have come unwoven. Yeah. And there's regime changes happening, and a lot of people are fleeing that. Yeah. Fleeing a situation created by Western ideas, right, coming to the West, and it's
Well, there's no excuse treating any human being the way they're being treated down there. No excuse. I guess Hitler excused it in some form or fashion.
A lot of people are cross-analyzing to the concentration camps and other things too. Yeah. More so like, this is the one I've heard of. They came to get these people, and I said nothing because I wasn't one of those people. Yeah. And it's like, and then they just tacked on basically South Americans at the border of the United States, and I wasn't one of them. Yeah. And I was like, ooh.
Yeah, the parallels are pretty scary if you know anything about your history. 1930s Germany, there's some definite parallels, and it's scary. Again, there's no excuse for treating anyone like that unless you dehumanize them, which is, again, exactly what Hitler and Himmler and that bunch did. most of us come from immigrants. I mean,
that's the sad irony of all of it,
my wife is part Native American. She has she could say, wait a minute, I'm a native, but to claim these people don't have a right to seek asylum seems pretty sad to me.
You know what? I was thinking about this the other day, just because I just hope that we don't hit a spurt where we backslide in some of the forward progress we've had with like gay rights and things like that. Because it's like, imagine, oh yeah, we got your marriage license on file. That's how we know you're gay.
Yeah.
Like, if we ever have any type of turnaround like that and we want to go after those people, there is an easy paper trail.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I just thought about that for the first time the other day, and I was like, shit. Like, there's implications there that...
Absolutely.
And I mean, yes, no more so than you or I guess, and because I'm thinking about this too. Things are starting to work like this technology-wise, is you be able to type in my name and something I said on a video,
right,
and the software will pull it up.
Yeah.
That's remarkable. So let's say, for example, words that you don't want people to say, like,
yes.
And for I'll just say, but like, because there's a lot of deniers out there in the Alex Jones controversy of the Sandy Hook thing. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of controversy surrounding people or 9/11 truthers or these conspiracies. But if you've been, say, putting out video content on those things, they're coming up or already have an existence. It's not the words you write anymore. You said that in some obscure video from 10 years ago in a podcast you did on somebody else's show.
Yeah.
And we have it right here.
Yeah.
That's kind of daunting too. The technological ways that we can keep track of people. Have you heard that they can get cardiac signatures on individuals now?
No.
Be like, yeah, Brian and Dana are sitting in that studio back there. We can tell it's them by their heartbeat. And they're in a van, up on the hill at the church or something, So
it's pretty scary.
It is, man. And we're spending money on developing that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So we can, look at people, monitor them or what have you.
Yeah, that kind of Orwellian feeling about things, and
yeah.
And again, the parallels with you're a historian. Do you think that people who don't know history are destined to repeat it?
Yes, yes, I do. And like the most bang your head up against the wall idea ever is you see that process still repeating, even though people quote unquote know. Like, I was joking around with one of my mentors that comes to the gym. I was just like, I was lecturing on the Roman Republic today, and it's kind of crazy that shit has not changed at all. Oh. Like, just within the bickering and the murdering and oh man, we gotta hit on this. So there's a funny meme, and it's like Arnold Schwarzenegger and Carl Weathers, and they got their muscles together, and it says, liberals, conservatives, Jerry Epstein's suicide. Did you hear about this Jerry Epstein suicide?
Yeah, I heard about that, yeah.
The memes on the internet right now, like, last person to visit Jerry Epstein, it's like Hillary Clinton with a mustache and a wig and all this stuff, but... Bill Clinton flew on his jet like 40-something times.
Really?
Documented. And that guy was on 24-hour-a-day suicide watchers, camera malfunction, all this stuff. And I'm just like, and now I'm just like, I don't even think he's dead. I think you guys got him out of there or something, but apparently he is about to roll on some people. And
really didn't know that.
This guy's in there for like sex trafficking of girls and children, and years going back. And I think they had him, the earliest thing I read is that they were watching since 2004. But just the connections he has to people where you're just like, and granted, they could have no idea what he's into.
Right.
But man, it's, everybody's looking at that situation like, what is going on?
No kidding.
Man, what is the explanation for that? I mean, you ever watch Law and Order Special Victims Unit? Like, what causes people, I've seen every episode, what causes people to be sick in that way? I mean, I see that as a mental illness. And like, here's another thing, is like a whole bunch of people were like, if that dude is dead, we as a society want his body on display. One, to prove that he is dead. Yeah. Two, that's what we want done with pedophiles. Yeah. And I hear that all the time. Yeah. And I know there's some serious moral and ethical implications there, because it capital punishment in general. Yeah. But I mean, we deal with it in our community, sex offender registry. And
right. I think those people, I mean, they're sick. I mean, I don't know how else to describe it. I mean, we can use all kinds of language like pedophile and so forth, but basically they're just sick individuals.
Do you think it's often victims themselves, born that way? I mean, what is a...
That's a tough one. You know, the old nature nurture controversy goes, you know, way back. And obviously there are different opinions about this, but it would seem that, you know, genetics plays a major role in setting the parameters for who we are and how we act, but environment interacts with that and can even determine whether or not a gene turns on or turns off. There's some controversy over whether or not somebody like a sociopath, whether their brain, you can actually see differences in their brain. And then that brings up an issue, is if they have a deformed brain, do we have the right to, you know, so I mean, it gets really crazy. But definitely, you know, pedophiles, in my opinion, are some of the sickest people out there.
I've struggled with that a lot, because those are the people because I'm not. I did two ethics courses in undergraduate, and one of them was contemporary moral issues, suicide, euthanasia, stuff like that, and capital punishment. And I don't know if you've followed that Netflix show they put out a couple years, Making a Murder. It's kind of a documentary style, but it's basically where they uncovered that this guy was wrongfully in prison for like 20 years, and there's projects, innocence projects, and all this where people, they're on death row. And it's like, and sometimes those are connected to biases and things like that too. That makes me real nervous on anything. So it's like, when you hear about some horrible story of a pedophile doing something like a Jerry Epstein story, or that might be some darker conspiracy, it's like, yeah, I want that person to die.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's real interesting to me how you can, I mean, me personally, I fall down, I'm like, yeah, but what about like this guy? Yes, he's on death row, but if we kill him, you know. But it's almost like, yeah, but he didn't really do anything like pedophilia, so I don't have a problem with it.
Yeah.
And it's interesting how we
start splitting hairs over stuff.
Oh, man, yes. Yeah. Yes. I was listening to this guy that when I was a kid grew up around, and he was speaking of all this stuff, the Nazi rally we had in Russellville.
Yes.
The Holocaust. He was speaking at that. He was the guy in the wheelchair with the neck brace. He died 3 days later. But he was talking on this AETN documentary about liberating Dachau. And he's Jewish, but a Christian too.
Yeah.
And he was talking about how, I guess it's at a certain point, he said he was talking about all the rail cars just full of bodies, and they found some live people, and then I guess a bunch of people. They discovered what had happened. The prisoners that were there, when they heard the Americans were close, and like when the Germans started leaving the camp, basically just tore the guards apart with their bare hands. And he was talking about that, and I was just like, whoa. But what was crazy is I was thinking, I'm like, what made him flip that switch of, like, why didn't you tear the guards apart months ago?
Yeah.
You know, and like, help is on the way so we can commit atrocity now, and not even, but it's like atrocity committed against you, so therefore it's okay. So then you get back into that loop again.
That's right.
And I remember hearing as a kid, you know, you're like, I was raised in church and stuff. My dad's reading about like Samson killing 1,000 Philistines with the jawbone of a donkey or something like that, and I'm just like, hell yes, but isn't killing bad? Like, yes, but the Philistines are bad. Okay, so we can kill them. And I'm like, okay, yes, the Philistines are against God, so we'll kill the shit out of them.
Yeah.
You know, but then it's like, well, these people are against God too, so let's kill the shit out of them also. It's a slippery slope, man. I don't even know, because all of those little paradigms, I don't even know how to look at things. Hysteria and hate and, you know, the freedom of speech aspects of it and everything else.
Yeah. And there is definitely something to that mob mentality. Of course, you know, just all kinds of weird stuff. Bystander effect.
What did you see any of the video of that white supremacist rally? I was watching that yesterday.
Actually, I was downtown when they came through. They kind of marched through or something.
Yeah, they were marching around the courthouse in that block.
Yeah, I was actually at Old Bank when that was going on.
How did it make you feel to look outside and see a Nazi flag going by?
It was pretty spooky. And some folks in there, it upset them a great deal. Yeah, spooky.
I mean, where do we draw the line on something like that as a society of free speech?
Exactly.
And most universally, I haven't talked to anyone other than people I know that say free speech. That's like, yes, that was a good thing. We appreciated having that in the community. It was a good demonstration. No, everybody's like, F that. We don't want that shit in our community. That's definitely the minority. Like, these people came in, some of them from here in Pope County, but came in from other counties and out of state and stuff. But it's like, we are going to tolerate that because of free speech. And I like free speech.
Right.
You know, because people are like, somebody was like, you know, I hate Nazis, and I was like, and I love free speech. You know, so it's like, but you know, here we are also creating technologies where it's like, did they talk about things we don't want people talking about on their YouTube? We'll just take that down. Let's do a little search and see if they said that word. So it's like, you know, we are in a time where I'm seeing it, like via technology, things like podcasts and stuff, of people being flagged for talking about these controversial things. Not saying we're getting into controversy, but more just like, this is a real issue in our community, but it's also happening all over.
Yeah.
You know, this level of hate and white supremacy and the shield wall network and all of this stuff going around. It's not just here in the South. It's not just here. I'm seeing hate all over. I'm seeing this
in other countries as well.
Yes.
European countries even.
Yeah.
The question is, you know, what is it that's driving this? And again, I don't think you can point to one thing. I think there are multiple factors that create that kind of atmosphere. You know, you would hope through education you could teach people what is acceptable and what's not acceptable. But we seem to be losing ground there as well.
I know it's I think about that a lot, particularly like in the gym, just teaching people martial arts and martial arts coming with a certain level of things like self-control and discipline. And I made a post on Facebook earlier about the word samurai means to be of service to others. Like that is it. That is the Japanese verb. That's what it means. And, some people don't give a shit about that. Like, they're just like, no, I'm here for me.
Yeah.
I don't care about them.
Yeah.
And I don't push that at all. I mean, what I push is like, no, if you don't want to be here for them, then you need to go train somewhere else. Because this is a culture of what we're going to do in here. Almost like, it's like if I can't have a utopian society, the gym is going to be utopian as possible. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? It's like but then also too, you can't control culture. You can only influence it, and I can't make people. I still have to be accepting of people that aren't necessarily on board, right. but not at the cost of other people, not at the cost of them being the piece of fruit that's rotting in the bowl that infects my other fruit. You know. So it's interesting how people will selfishly all the pollution in the environment. There's so many places we see. It's like I would never litter. Right. But everywhere I look, there's litter.
It's everywhere, yeah. Driving down the interstate, think, why don't people care any more than to not do that,
Here's one I got for you. And maybe you can offer why it's this way. None of these people that have committed any of these atrocities that we've hit on, these shootings, school shootings, shopping markets, or anything, are women.
Yeah, interesting, isn't it?
Like, what is that all about? And two, here's another thing. Like, I bet if you looked at a lot of stuff going on, it wouldn't be like pollution and things like that. Like, I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm just, I don't have any data on that, but I don't know. I just feel like women are less likely to pollute than men, but it's, Cora brought that up the other day and I was like, damn. And you guys got suppressed for thousands of years. And here we are shooting up supermarkets.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's interesting.
I, look at education and I see a huge, huge deterioration in education.
You think that's methodological or what? You think it's oversight? You think it's the lady that's our education secretary right now? You think it's people like that doing the job? I mean...
Well, again, it's multiple causes, but students, well, let's go back. If you've read a letter home from a Civil War veteran or a person in the Civil War writing a letter home to, say, parents or to a loved one or something like that, their ability to write, their grammar, their syntax, verbal agreement, they're beautiful letters. Even their penmanship is beautiful. And we're talking about, people with just minor education. When I say minor, I mean...
Penmanship has really gone out the window.
Yeah. Well, a lot of kids, I will ask in class, can any of you write in cursive? And there'll be only 2 or 3 hands go up.
By the wayside.
The ability to think in a critical manner has just gone by wayside. Students want to know, do we get a study guide? And I tell them, no, your book is your study guide, They have been hand-fed certain little things that you need to know to pass
The disjunction of lower education and higher education is when I was an undergraduate, I worked on a program that was trying to bridge that gap a lot. That's how I really first got into, well, a little before that, I got into video editing and video making. But while I was working on a program, our goal would be to sit down with somebody like you, Dr. Thomason. I got a high school psychology, sociology teacher here in Russellville, and he's doing a unit and he has no content. He needs, when you do this unit, what are some things you talk about? Can you give one 20-minute talk on a topic from this, and we're going to film it, we're going to edit it, and we're going to make it on DVD and send it to him, or we're going to upload it where he can access it on the YouTube. So really solid idea, but it's like that was the whole thing, is because we're like what we're talking about, there's that disconnect. It's like people are getting here and they're not, we need him exposed to that unit idea that he doesn't have the content on because he didn't get it maybe when he was going. Like, here's the thing, like, I could have gotten my high school licensure, which I almost did. I just need to go through a couple classes. They interned the phase 2 portion of the program. And I was just like, I don't really know if I want to do that, because I could have got stuck teaching American government and political science classes only, for example, civics.
Yeah.
And I had 9 hours of that. 9 total.
Yeah.
And it's this, like, okay, I got to go through this big licensure program and meet all these criteria and not get content subject matter in my field. And it's like there's this disconnect there. And go through this big licensure program, I don't have to have a licensure to work at the community college.
No.
You know what I'm saying?
Because it's your discipline that makes the difference there.
Yes, and then there's you have to have 18 hours minimum of this discipline in order to teach this. So there's disconnects everywhere like that.
Yeah.
We got any happy stuff to talk about? Right?
Yeah. Man, like it's all downers.
Well, all we're doing is really just kind of riffing on the spirit of the times, man.
Yeah.
I tell people this all the time, because everybody, like we were talking before, I think right before we hit record, is everybody I asked to podcast, if they've never done a podcast before, which is most people, what are we going to talk about?
Yeah.
It's like, well, I don't know. If we planned it might mess it up.
Yeah. Yeah.
But these are the things going on right now. Right. Unfortunately, we're not talking about anything that wasn't a news report in the last 5 days.
Yeah, it's not like they had a big rally for peace lately. It's been all downers. So,
well, and two, the rallies they are having, people like the comments section on social media is such an atrocious place to be. Like, I just saw somebody make some sort of post about something totally just not hate related. And then somebody was like, yeah, I saw more of that at the Pride rally or something like that. This was like a dig on that, and I was just like, man, like, leave those people alone.
Yeah.
Like, a peaceful get together for more rights. And it's like, you're probably the guy being like, where's that technology where we can find them? It's daunting, but
my understanding that they had a pride rally out in Oklahoma City here not too long ago. My understanding was that it was a very nice thing. So
no, they had one in Fayetteville recently.
Oh, really?
Yes,
I didn't know about that one.
I knew. I had a couple of students go to it, which, and I get back and forth on, because I will be accommodating to people.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Especially, but I also want people to dot their I's and cross their T's, because like we are in a time, even in our place in the world, where just like even on campus, like the diversity in the student and employees.
Yes.
It's not, you're not just going to be a straight white person.
Yeah.
Universally speaking, you know.
Yeah.
But we did get an email the other day that was like, "Now be sure and go over your pronouns first day of class." And I was like, that's about a skip and a jump further than I thought we were. Like, I knew we were there, but like now it's an email being like, you should probably implement this to what you do. And I don't know how I feel about that, because I'm like, my thing is this, like, I will accommodate you, but I need you, like, how you want me to accommodate you? If it could say that on the roll, that'd be fucking great for me.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I'm like, yeah, you see, I get what you want me to say, and that is a non-issue with me. But when I look at this roll I got to call, he don't say that.
Yeah.
And that's where it's like, then it opens up, like, I just got like a weird liability of like, what if I accidentally say the wrong thing? But then it's like every day on your toes of like, say the right thing. And then it becomes this one issue with this one student or whatever. And it's like, again, I have no problems accommodating. Right. I'm more than happy to, but it's like, dot your I's and cross your T's. I guess it's really, I would say probably harder to change your name. Like, I know it's super easy, and that's another thing. It's like, this is society we're going to live in. Like, you know how easy it was for my wife to change her last name when we got married? Super easy. So, like, a trans person can't change their name super easy, or it's a $5,000 expense, and then they got to be forced into some sort of weird thing where they accidentally get called the wrong name that they want to get called, but they're living as this other gender. And in a social setting of like, yes, I get called this name every day, and then one day there's a slip up and that name's the opposite gender, and it's, you know, it's a weird thing, but it's like, it's just a byproduct of like, apparently I haven't looked too heavily into it, but apparently it's just not easy for, like, let's say a 20-year-old person to run out and change your first and last name because of, oh, why are you doing that? Are you trying to steal someone's identity? Like, I guess just going to change your first name, there's more to it. I don't know. But that's maybe there needs to be a policy relaxation, like, because that's the very definitive gist I've gotten from younger people is like the name change part is not happening. It's more of like an alias for them because they just haven't been able to, can't afford it, haven't been able to go through the process or whatever.
Wow. So. Well, I'm like you. I'm going to accommodate, and I'm going to be open to whatever a student wants, you know, within reason. So
I'm probably even, I mean, this just sounds weird. I don't know why, but I'm probably even more accommodating to those students. I don't know if it's like I just like, it's almost like a point of empathy. Like, I get that you're gonna have it harder. It's gonna be more difficult, and I feel bad for them. You know, it's I don't have to deal with that. And it's like if you're born that way type of a deal, you know, if you could, there's nothing you could do to help this. If it's some sort of a genetic or a chemical in your brain or whatever it is that, I mean, something obviously is making you very really identify with that. And it's, you know, I don't know what that is. But I can still have empathy for that person.
Sure.
A lot of people can't. I've never understood that.
There is this, I think that's a key thing to what's going on in this country, and, well, not just this country, but across the world. If you're not like us, we got a problem with you.
If you don't have empathy for transsexuals, okay, you're the enemy.
Yeah.
And it could be that, because what's crazy is the haters are saying that, or both sides are saying the same thing, and that's the everybody got to be right type of anyway. Well, so what'd you think about the training today, Jeb?
That was great. Yeah,
good times.
I learned a lot. You know, to be as old as I am, I don't move like I used to. I've got things that hurt that didn't hurt 30 years ago, but I thought it was very good. Worked up a good sweat, and I think I learned a lot. I appreciate it.
It'd be good for you getting out there and moving around like that.
Yeah.
And man, it's the biggest inspiration with this guy Roland that's coming in.
Yeah.
Because he's 71, and he is usually the smallest person in class. And he gets out there and he does the technique portion of the class. He drills. And then when we start sparring or rolling is what they what we call it in jiu-jitsu. He and I'll just go on over to the other side of the mat and start doing the Wing Chun dummy or he's showed me a lot of throws, a lot of off balances. His breaking of the balance is special. I mean, it's just different. And he's like, it's because it's the sword. But that guy's been blowing my mind. But one of these Tuesday or Thursday nights, you'll have to try and sneak in for a class. Because he's down there. So I've been getting 2 hours a week with him. So like from about 7:15 to 7:45, we'll go train and do stuff, and then the class will be over, we'll bow out, and then he and I will also go train after class another 30-45 minutes. And he's like, I gotta go replace the hip tomorrow, I'll see you later. I'm just like, a master with a blade, I see. But he is, the other night, one of the white belts accidentally took his keys home.
Oh no.
Yeah. So he called like the only Uber in Russellville to take him back to Clarksville. And this guy, I was like, man, Roland, I'm so sorry this happened, man. And he's like, just acceptance. And I was like,
okay.
Yes, sir. And then this Uber guy pulls up. It's like, yo, I'm looking for Rolando. And I was like, yes, Mr. Roland is here. I open the door and this little Asian man walks out carrying his Japanese katana, man. And like the cab driver is like, what is going on here? You got this little old band leaving here with a samurai sword going to Clarksville. So I bet that was an interesting ride home. Yeah.
Well, I'll definitely try to make it over.
Man, I really it's been fascinating because outside of him, there's 2 other guys that are both over 70. My original judo mentor, who's also a former Green Beret, and one of my instructor's dads, he lives out north of Dover. And he's got some knee issues and stuff, so he gets out on the mat less and less every year, but he's been coming down more because Roland's down there. And then there's this other guy named Gary, who's a high-ranking judo guy out of Clarksville, retired. And man, we're trying to get more stuff like that. With this new gym growth, one thing we're talking recently about adding is, have you ever heard of Rock Steady Boxing? It's basically a national boxing certification program that you go through and you get certified. And then let's say you had Parkinson's, your insurance would pay for you to go to this boxing class.
Oh, cool.
Because studies have shown that type of, I mean, you're not going to get hit in the head, obviously, but the endurance side of it, the moving around, the repetition, also this, doing things like counting when you're exercising. There's been a lot of studies on that where you're counting while you're performing a physical movement and correlating it with forms new neural pathways and repairs neural pathways and stuff like that. So super interesting data definitely on that. Yeah.
Well, very interesting, and I need to do more too.
Yeah. Well, hey, theoretically, you got a little more time now. You are a very.
That's right.
You're an adjunct now.
That's
you know.
Right.
So, but anyway, man, we can go ahead and wrap it up. I really appreciate you taking the time to come out. Me. Got you.
Appreciate you.
Been mentioned getting down and doing this, so now you know what it's like. Yeah. If we ever, apparently one of my former students gobbled up Ray Trower for his first podcast. I was like, dude, you know, I got a podcast, right? When are we doing one? Now that you have experience.
Yeah, cool.
So maybe we'll have a podcast with Ray. He lives in Russellville. I told him, I'm like, dude, now I know you do podcasts. You're going to have to come be on mine.
Sounds great.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you, Doc. You got anything do you have any books or anything? You have anything you want to plug? Intellectual property, anything like that?
Well, sure. I mentioned Ken Wilber's stuff a while ago. Where to start would be
is that the name of his work?
He
has a. You said he has a collected works.
Yeah, he's got collected works. I was thinking, which one to say start with is probably. I'd have to give that some thought. But if someone wanted to look up Ken Wilber and look at some of his books, that would be a great place to start. Of course. Depends on what field you're talking about.
Do you have any published works out there?
I've only got some things in a dictionary. I've got I think like 6 articles published in a religious dictionary.
Did you get that with infant faith and adult spirituality? Was that a published article?
No. That's just something I put together to give to clients and to other people that are interested in it. It's mostly just a collection of other people's works. I quote them in there. I've just kind of pulled some things together to try to help people understand that faith, like development in general, is a developmental process. We move from infancy to childhood to adolescence to young adulthood to middle adulthood to old age. Our progress in our faith development is the same. It is a progressive thing. We don't reach a point where we go, "Oh, I have arrived."
What's funny is when you reach the point where you realize that the arrival is not a thing.
Yeah, it's all about the journey. It's
it's just like I've talked to you about this a little bit in the past, but if it went back to a lot of my mentors and like, you dudes didn't say anything about this shit. You didn't say it's going to be this way. Like, it's like,
yeah,
you could have told me.
Yeah,
like it's just like. It's fascinating, but I also joke, and then as another guy I follow, Gary Vaynerchuk's been saying this, it's like all you adults who are claiming to have it figured out, who are telling your kids to figure it out, need to shut up. You know what I'm saying? It's like, because it is, I thought I would, it's like, okay, my brain will be done developing at 25, I will have gotten my master's degree, and then I will know everything.
Yeah.
But it's just like, man, as I age, just like you're talking about, like hitting different levels of consciousness and these different phases of your life and meeting your goals along with that too.
Yeah, and the ones you don't meet, I'm 65, retired, and trying to figure out what I want to do when I grow up, So, we'll have to get together and talk more about that.
Well, yeah. Well, if we'll have to play it by ear. I think I might be in town next week. We'll have to get some more training in too, man.
Sure.
I enjoy. Great. It's not. It's kind of funny because a lot of folks in the jiu-jitsu world, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, they think training that Aikido bullshit is stupid.
Really?
Dogmatism.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, but you're over here talking about wrist locks like you think they're cool. Yeah. These people do a lot of that teikubiwaza, wrist locking techniques. So, man, I got an open mind, but it's funny as Bruce Lee went through the same things. It's like, you're training other arts other than Kung Fu. What are you thinking? Like, and you're teaching it to these people too. Like, you're working with Dana and teaching them this art that you're not even ranked at, or whatever it is. And it's like, I don't care.
Yeah. I'm
studying that art because it's got this lock like the Americana that I do, and I want to know more about the Americana.
Yeah.
So, what have you. Well, man, again, I appreciate your time.
Thanks for the invitation.
Yes, sir. We're signing off.
Okay.
See you guys.